I'm not sure I can talk.
You can talk. You can stand if you want.
Wave my arms around and all that.
It's all good. I'm Katie. This is Catherine. For those that don't know, Catherine is one of the co-owners of the store. I am the communications manager. I take care of our social media, and if you read the newsletters, I'm the one that writes them. And we are here to talk this morning about how to choose the right fabric for your project. We are largely going to focus, I think, on woven fabrics. Knit fabrics will be another discussion topic another day, and we hope to see you folks back here for that. And to give some background, Catherine, you've been sewing for...
I first sewed when I was 9 years old.
A long time.
Many decades ago. Through high school, I made all of my own clothing. And then I, got married and had kids, and all of a sudden I wasn't a straight size 14 out of the envelope anymore. And as so many of us do, concluded that meant there was something wrong with my body, not something wrong with the pattern. And basically continued sewing children's clothes, but didn't make anything for myself until I returned to the workforce decades later again, and all of a sudden realized that I could not find anything that was office suitable because the skirts were all too short and everything was too young and the sleeves weren't long enough and all of that sort of stuff. But in the meantime, the internet had happened, and there were YouTube tutorials and multi-sized patterns, and I just plunged back into it, and that was about 14 years ago. And now
you own a fabric store.
And now I own a fabric store, and I would say 95% of my wardrobe is me-made. Yeah. So.
And for me, I've been sewing for 8 years. I picked it up when my youngest was born. I dived right into sewing knits before I tackled wovens. I ran a business for 5 years, minus the pandemic, sewing children's clothing. And it was only when I started working here 4 or 5 years ago that I really was encouraged to start sewing with woven fabric. And I'm like, no, I don't get this woven thing. You have to fit it in the knits. You can just like stretch over your body and it'll be fine, and I can do those. And I've really fallen in love with, there's so many more possibilities, I think, in the woven garment world. So it was really working here that pushed me to start exploring those boundaries. And for me, I would say, yeah, probably like 95% of my wardrobe is all me-made at this point.
Yeah.
So.
And I want to just jump in here and say that when I started sewing, first of all, when I was in high school, and then again when I started sewing my own wardrobe, again, I made a classic mistake over and over again. I was scared of lightweight fabrics, and I always chose something that was too heavy for the project, because I was concerned about, it's going to be too see-through, it's going to be too drapey, it's going to show my tummy and all of this sort of stuff. So I went for stiffer fabric and was usually disappointed with the results. So I had to learn the hard way to trust the pattern envelope, trust the pattern recommendations, and don't be scared of extending that comfort zone just a little bit to see what the possibilities are.
So to jump into fabric discussion, and really the first thing you have to look at when you are choosing a fabric is the pattern envelope.
Yeah.
The pattern envelope is always going to give you a recommendation on the type of fabric that you should use, and sometimes they'll give you a very specific recommendation and say, use linen, and sometimes they'll give a more broad recommendation and say use a lightweight fabric. And I think that's where people get tripped up, because they go, well, what's a lightweight fabric? And I know, Tanya, you were saying internet shopping, how do you tell what's lightweight versus not lightweight? And a good fabric store is going to have that information in the product listing, but there's a couple of ways that you can decode the name of a fabric to understand if it's lightweight versus midweight versus bottom weight. And what that comes down to is understanding that there are two real parts to the name of a fabric, and one of them is the substrate or the type of weave that the fabric is, and the other is the type of fiber that the fabric is made from. So, for example, looking at something like a rayon poplin. Rayon is the type of fiber that the fabric is made from. Poplin is the kind of weave, because you can have a cotton poplin, you can have I don't think I've ever seen a linen poplin, but.
I don't think linen would do poplin very
No,
well.
no.
But a man's linen suit
Yes.
is often a linen blend poplin.
Poplin, yes.
Yeah.
So, learning what is the fiber and how those fibers are going to behave will help to inform that, and the kind of fabric that it is will help to inform your choice. And I guess, should we jump into your callies? Because I
Sure.
think those are a great example of different types and styles of fabric. So Catherine really loves making the Callie shirt. I think
I'm a tried and true gal. I have like 5 patterns I make over and over again.
and that's okay. That's okay.
And
When you
that's
find
perfectly
what
okay.
works.
Yeah.
Do you want me to hold and you talk?
Sure.
Okay. So we'll start with.
This is a very lightweight cotton that we get from Merchant and Mills, and they get it from India. So it's a block printed. This is much lighter than what you would call a quilting cotton. This is
More like a lawn.
It's more like a lawn. It's even lighter than a lawn. It's very, as you can see, because it's cotton, and because it's a lawn, it holds its shape, but it's still very loose, and it moves and flows, but it doesn't drape all that much. It's still got that body to it.
And anytime you have cotton as part of the fiber content, it's going to give your garment that body.
A little more structure.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so that's that one versus, and we get asked this question quite frequently is, can I sew garments out of quilting cotton?
Absolutely,
Yes.
especially if it's Harry Potter printed.
and quilting cotton is really very similar to weight of like a shirting cotton, because you'll see
Absolutely.
shirting cotton, which is, standard dress shirt fabric. That's what quilting cotton is.
Sometimes it's called broadcloth.
Yes.
It's basically the same thing, yeah.
Yeah. So,
But as you can see, the same pattern, and it does, I put sleeves on it, but it has even more body, because the fabric it's a slightly tighter weave. When we've finished talking, you can come and take a look at these. The individual threads are a little thicker, the weave is a little bit tighter, so the overall fabric is a little bit heavier, and it holds its weight more, it holds its shape more. It will stand out from my body a little bit more.
and sometimes you want that, and sometimes part of this too is discovering what you want
Exactly.
in the garment. So this one you said is
It's a linen cotton blend.
right.
Again, it's not all that, it's a little bit different from this one, but it's this is my favorite of all of them.
And you see the linen gives it some
Just a
really
little bit
nice
more
movement
to
than the
it.
cotton.
Yeah.
And then lastly, this one is
This is a rayon.
rayon.
Yeah, this is one of the rayons.
This would be a rayon poplin probably, because it's smooth.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's
a while
not
ago.
one of our rayon challis because it's a little bit heavier.
Yes.
It's a little bit heavier
Yeah.
than that. Yeah. But again, so you can see the difference between that one
The movement
and
of
this one, right? This one has much more drape and folds to it, and it tends to, when I'm wearing it, it's a, I don't know, it seems a little more elegant,
Mm.
the drapey one.
Yes.
It's a little more dressy or whatever.
Yeah.
Excuse me, could you explain what is drape? Is
So-
it loose or?
Yeah, so drape is how the fabric
If
falls.
I go like this, right?
Yeah.
The more it falls,
The more
it
drape
fo-
it
the more
has.
it
Okay,
falls,
thank
the more it sort of flows with the movement. Whereas if I were to do the same thing with this one, it just doesn't do it as easily, and it doesn't move as easily.
Yeah, so drape is referring to how the fabric hangs.
And just one more contrast. This again is a rayon. Again,
That's a rayon poplin. I'm
that's a
fairly certain.
rayon poplin. This is the same shirt as this. This is done with a linen, a medium weight linen, heavier than this one.
It's
But
okay.
again,
The barnyard has come to join us.
Sorry.
It's all good. It's all good.
What does the poplin mean?
So poplin has to do with the weave and the weight of the fabric.
yeah, it's a fairly tight weave.
Yes. I am not 100% certain of the definition of poplin. I know poplin is usually a bit of a tighter weave than a lawn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, poplin is not going to be as transparent
Yes.
as a lawn.
As a lawn.
But again, this shirt is sort of more elegant and drapey than this one.
Right. So I'd say we can't, like, there are so many kinds of weaves of fabric. I don't think we can go through all of them and teach them to you. I would recommend Googling what those weaves are, but knowing that a poplin is a light fabric. A crepe has to do with the texture of the fabric. It's still lightweight, but it generally is
A little bit of a nub.
a
to it.
nubby feel to it. A voile is going to be very lightweight and very sheer. A twill is going to be a little bit heavier, and that's an interesting one because you can have very heavyweight twills and you can have very lightweight twills as well, and it's informed by
But they all
the
have
fiber.
that diagonal line on them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can see it very well on this one. So you can see the drape of this has quite nice drape because this is made from viscose, and we'll get to viscose and rayon in a second. But it is a tight weave, so it's not going to be transparent, and it's got this cross-hatched pattern.
So it still has the flowiness and the movement to it, but you can see that your garment is going to have a bit more structure to it than the red Cali did.
And this is
That's a
super
twill
heavy.
as well.
This is also a twill. This is a cotton twill, and there are more this is a heavier weight, so there are more fibers and heavier fibers used when they're weaving this, and you can see it's going to hold its structure more differently.
And that's related to the fact that it's cotton.
Then
whereas
this one is viscose.
This is viscose.
But it's
yeah.
the same type of fabric, same weave of fabric. So
A bit more structured.
yeah. Yeah.
So comparing those two is more about the difference between a natural fiber and the synthetic fiber?
So and this is where let's talk about it's not I'm going to leave these here and you folks can look at those afterwards. So there's a common misconception that viscose, rayon, tencel, modal are synthetic fibers, and they're not. They are man-made fibers, but they are plant-based fibers. Tencel is made from plant matter, waste plant matter. Modal, I think specifically, is eucalyptus. Rayon is bamboo, and viscose is wood pulp. Yeah. So they're all there's an extraction process, and you can look for Tencel. I know Tencel is a branded fiber. Their website has a lot of good information because it's a closed circle process in how they extract the fibers and the water that goes back into the watershed. So they're actually it's quite an environmentally friendly fiber because of the processes that have been put in place and how it's made. So to answer your question, it's not about the synthetic versus man-made. It's about the kind of fiber it is. Rayon, viscose are going to be always going to be a more drapey fiber, no matter what the weave is. Cotton is always going to be stiffer and heavier, and both of those are
probably because of the microscopic level.
How
Because it's a man-made fiber, that microscopically that fiber is going to have a smoother surface to it, whereas a cotton or a linen or a wool
is going to
be a little bit fuzzier, let's say.
Yeah. And in terms of
unless it's mercerized.
yeah,
Sorry.
in terms of wearability and how it sews and how it behaves for the home garment sewist, rayon and viscose are virtually indistinguishable. They're just made from different plants. So anytime you see rayon and viscose, know in your head that they're roughly the same fiber.
They're going to behave the same in your garment.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
the other nice thing about this broad group of natural fibers is that they are more comfortable to wear.
Yeah.
In addition to being more environmentally sensitive, or respectful, they are more comfortable to wear. They even a rayon or a viscose or a tencel, they
is
breathe.
breathable.
They breathe better. They don't retain the heat and the sweat as much. So than a polyester would.
And
example.
polyester is plastic.
It's
plastic fiber.
extruded from.
I don't think
Yeah.
we ever have anything in the store that is polyester. We almost
Maybe the interfacing?
that doesn't
sure.
count.
No, it
That doesn't count. In
but
terms of garment fabric,
No.
we choose natural fibers, partly for their environmental impact and partly because it's just nicer fabric to
nicer
sew
fabric
for.
to sew, yeah.
I'm just gonna step away for a second and take a quick drink because my mouth is dry. Does anybody have any questions so far?
The static cling that you get with rayon and viscose, why are they so staticky?
Why is it staticky? I think that has, I can't even remember it being static. I think that has more to do with the humidity in the air. Like, our houses in the wintertime do get very dry, and that is going to increase, that static cling.
I think the way you wash the fabric too makes a difference because I don't find any of my rayons staticky, but I never put them in the dryer. I always hang them to dry.
Yes. Yeah,
So,
me too.
Heat damages fibers. It's when people complain that something is fading, it's probably because it's been put in the dryer multiple times. So I always hang my garments to dry. So extend the wearability of your
Wash in cold water.
wash in cold water, hang to dry.
Hang to dry, yeah. Except when you buy fabric.
Yes.
Yeah, when you buy fabric and you're pre-washing it before you actually sew your garment, we do recommend that you wash it a lot more harshly than you plan to wash the finished garment. So if it's a cold wash, hang to dry, wash it in warm water, and medium dry it in the dryer. That prevents tragedy if some helpful large person that lives in your house with you decides to do the laundry and put it in the dryer. Yeah.
Or teenagers.
Or teenagers.
Yes. Any other questions so far?
You mentioned starting with the recommendations on the pattern envelope.
Mm-hmm.
For someone who is like printing free patterns from the library, they don't always have those details with them, or relying on secondhand patterns from an aunt who no longer has the envelopes. Would you recommend just kind of doing some of the tricks like you did with holding the fabric up and kind of trying to think, does
Yes.
this suit how I want it to drape?
Yes.
Like, is there any other way
And
to?
I have an example there. Let's talk about deciding to deviate from the envelope just a little bit, or how you can judge. Basically, look around you. You know, like look at the garments that you have and the fabric that they use, and how does it behave, and compare that to the pattern that you want to make, and say, okay, is this fabric that I'm thinking of similar to, this other garment? For example, this is a jean skirt pattern, but I've made it with denim, but I also made it with that lightweight canvas that we have.
And this is a cotton it's a
This is
100% cotton canvas.
This is 100% cotton canvas.
Yeah.
So just like those up there that are typically sold for bag making.
So those aren't 100% cotton. Those are cotton linen. So
Okay.
those are going to wrinkle
A little more.
and be a little bit. Linen is lighter than cotton. So they're going to be a little bit lighter. I've used them to make skirts as well, not this style, like a fuller A-line skirt, and they sew up wonderfully.
But because they're the canvas, they would hold the A-line a little bit
Very
more,
well,
right?
yes, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I brought these two just to demonstrate that you can make, I should have taken them off here. You can make jeans with a 14-ounce denim, and these are just like the jeans I remember from my childhood. Remember the Wranglers that could practically stand up on their own? I love these things. They feel like I'm wearing armor. They're great. But then I made the same pants out of a fairly lightweight cotton corduroy. So they're just a little bit softer. You know, I can bend and move a little bit more. They've got a little bit more sort of
Movement.
ease and wiggle room to them.
Yep.
But it's the exact same pattern. I just decided that I,
Wanted
corduroy jeans.
And that was the next. I love your question because it segues into the next discussion, is looking at the pattern, and even without the recommendations on the back, looking at the garment and being able to judge what kind of fabric and fiber is going to give you the result that you want. So you can see I've pulled our cello mannequins. We have two other ones as well, but they're similar to two that are up here. The cello pattern, for those that is everyone familiar with the cello pattern? Okay, it's a pattern by Closet Core. It is it's buried on one of these. It's a very straight, boxy top and dress with options for big sort of balloon sleeves. That one's got them.
This one's got the drama sleeves.
Yeah, and you can do a straight dress, you can do a pocket, or you can have it as a crop top as well. Looking at that pattern, knowing that there's very little, there's only bust starts, there's very little shaping. What's going to give that garment shape and interest is the kind of fabric that you use. So this one here is that linen cotton canvas. Cotton is going to be stiffer, so it's going to hold its shape more. And canvas is a heavier weight fabric, so it's going to hold its shape. So instead of it's not going to fall down your body, it's not going to have drape, it's going to give it that sort of architectural feel. This one is quilting cotton. So again, it's still got that like cotton holding its shape, but you can see
The
it's
way the sleeves just sort of stand on their own.
yeah,
right?
but it's not as shaped as the canvas one. And then on the other side, this is a rayon. So it's just gonna fall. If you had done the balloon sleeves are gonna fall and show that fullness that way. If you had done this in a quilting cotton with the balloon sleeves, they're going to stand up much more, and that's going to help give them some kind of shape. So when you're looking at a pattern, you have to decide, do I want to show that shaping? Do I want to show those folds, or do I want the garment to fall more around me?
And have that drama just when you move the sleeve
Exactly.
rather than all the time. Yeah.
It's and this is where it becomes knowing what your body is comfortable in wanting to wear. If you're wanting and picking patterns, because how am I'm sorry, I'm trying to formulate this thought. There was a rayon sticking to you and sort of showing every curve. You can, if you want that beautiful fall of a rayon garment and that lightweightness, you would then look for a pattern that has more fullness to it than something that's going to be very close to your body. So
for example, this one here, this is another consideration. Looking at this one here,
yep.
with all of these pieces, this is a very sort of architectural pattern. So you're gonna need or want to use a fabric that's going to respect that architectural nature of it and hold, each one of these pieces needs to hold its shape. So you're not necessarily going to want to use
a rayon
poplin or anything
because it's not going to it's not going to suit the pattern.
Yeah.
With something like the cello, it's basically a box. You can use many different kinds of fabric because the fabric and the fiber of that fabric is what is going to give that garment shape. I'm thinking we don't have a copy. The Bluette dress by Deer and Doe is a button-down dress with princess seams. It's the seaming is what gives it its fitting. If you chose something like a cotton poplin, a cotton lawn, it's going to fit close to the body and then sort of flare out, as opposed to the.
I want you to talk about this dress.
I can in a second.
Okay.
So this is the Mia Sotis by Deer and Doe. This is a shirting weight stretch cotton, so it's got some spandex in it. And I love choosing garment stretch wovens, anything with a little bit of spandex, because I find that it's just that much more comfortable. I've made several pairs of pants with stretch woven, and when I feel like I've eaten too many meatballs in the evening, they expand nicely for me. So I've made this dress in several different shirting weight cottons, and this one has darts in the bust, it has darts in the front, it has darts in the back for shaping, and I would not choose to make this in a rayon because I feel like with the darting and the weight of the skirt, it would pull too much and it would sag and it would just look sad. If I was going to pick something other than a cotton, I would probably stick to a linen, being aware of the weight of the skirt and how it was pulling on the bodice. And there are some tricks you could do. You could put in, you know, clear elastic to help strengthen that seam. Yeah, you have that's a consideration, something to take into consideration.
But the other aspect to this dress is the gathering, right?
Yes.
Because with this is a slightly lighter than quilting cotton weight, but your gathers are still fairly crisp.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But if you imagine like a child's dress, a little girl's dress with the fitted bodice and then the gathered skirt, those are usually made out of something that's very similar to a quilting cotton, so that those gathers will be really crisp and the skirt will really hold its shape and you know, stick out like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, think about that if you're making a gathered skirt. Do you want it to have that real, you know, defined shape, or do you want it to fall around your body a little bit more?
Yeah.
Do you want those gathers to be really structured and prominent and you know, defined like this?
Yeah.
Or do you want them to just sort of all flow together the way, you know, something like a lawn or a rayon would do?
Yeah, and it's the same with like pleating. Pleating,
yeah.
You really want to show off those pleats. So picking a fabric with structure, your cotton, and you've got
the Kelio has a pleat in the back.
Yeah.
So you see, and sometimes I do the pleat one way, and sometimes I do the pleat the other
because
way.
you
And
can
I
do a
usually
box. I was gonna say you
get
can do
mixed up.
a box pleat on the outside, or whatever the other one is called.
And sometimes, yeah. So, you know, it's just a lot more prominent on the linen than it is on the
rayon.
And a lot of times when I'm doing a rayon like this, you know, for a shirt, if it's got a box pleat and it's a lighter weight fabric, sometimes I'll turn that into a gathered section rather than the pleat, because I know the pleat is going to be like a nightmare to try and iron, and it's not going to
hold its shape
it's not going to
well
hold
at
its
all.
shape, so I'll turn it into gathers instead. Yeah.
What time are we on?
9:38.
9:38. Okay, perfect.
Can I add something?
Yes.
With your regards to the question about like whether if you have a pattern, one thing that you need to know if the pattern is for a knit or a woven, because you can use a woven pattern to do a knit, because then it depends on the but like
Yeah.
depends on, but for example, if it's a woven pattern and you use if it's a knit pattern and you go and use a woven, it's not going to fit you because the fabric doesn't have depends on of course the type of, but usually that's at least one thing, whether that it has the stretch or not.
Yeah, so I said we weren't going to touch on knits, but I guess I will very briefly. Patterns, is everyone familiar with the term ease? Ease?
Okay.
So ease in a pattern is how much space there is for it to go around your body. There is positive ease, which means that there is more garment than body to go inside, like this dress. And there's negative ease, which means that you have to stretch the garment for it to go around. You think like bathing suits have negative ease.
Yes.
Many knit patterns have negative ease. Like a fitted t-shirt, you need to stretch it to go around your body. So if you took a fitted t-shirt pattern and tried to make it out of woven, it's not going to fit you at all. There are ways that you can alter those patterns so that they do fit. A lot of the times it's going to involve putting in some kind of closure, because you can't just slip it on and off your head.
And look at the finished garment measurements and size up accordingly.
Yeah. Something again that the cello is one of my favorite. This is one of my tried and true patterns. I think I've got 9 or 10 of them at home.
I thought I was bad with Kelio.
No, I really love this pattern.
Okay.
You could very easily take the cello pattern and turn it into a knit garment, because there's no closures, it's meant to just slip on and off your head. You would have to be aware of and again, going into what kind of drape your fabric has.
Yeah.
You would look for something with more structure. So one of the like cotton tencel terries would be really great in this. We had that wool and cotton
Yes.
dead stock. So
Yeah.
it was like wool on one side and cotton on the other. It didn't have a lot of stretch, but it was a knit fabric. It would be fantastic for this. It would be really warm.
A ponte.
A ponte which is more structured. It's a double knit. So that would be really great for this. And then the other way around, if you're looking at like, I'm looking at the Lark over there, which is a fitted t-shirt. You really wouldn't want to grab the Lark and grab the Linden. Sorry. So the Lark, you wouldn't want to turn that into a woven garment because it's fitted. You'll never get it over your,
Yeah.
Or if you're gonna get it on, did anybody, is anybody aware of the Met Gala that happened and Kim Kardashian had to be like pushed and shoved into Marilyn Monroe's dress, and they sewed her in, and then she basically walked up the stairs and there was a guard there waiting for her to take the dress off so they could take it back to the Smithsonian.
And it didn't even fit. So that's why she had the fur coat.
They
had to sort of put a ribbon or something.
Yeah,
that it
and
wouldn't fit
she
anyway,
couldn't get
so.
into it.
Yeah.
So
What's the jumpsuit that you like so
the
much?
Sirocco.
The Sirocco. We actually had a customer come into the store when we were still on Wellington, and she had made a Sirocco out of a woven fabric, and she kind of ruefully laughed and said, "Yeah, when I got it made and I tried it on, and then I couldn't get it off."
Yeah.
So she had to open up a seam
Oh.
and a seam and put in an invisible zipper.
So the Sirocco is a cross front bodice, pull on romper. And I've got like 9 of those too. I really love that pattern. And you basically like step into the neckline and pull it on and you're good to go. But there is enough ease in those pants and in that bodice that you could make it out of a woven, but yeah, you have to put in that jumper because you can't stretch it to get yourself inside.
Yeah.
The linen, so I know people have, if you look at the shape of this, it's very boxy compared to the shape of this one. And you could absolutely make this in a woven fabric, but there are a couple of things that you would have to take into consideration. One is that you do still have to get your head through that hole.
Yes.
So you would either make it out of like put a knit band so that would stretch, or put in some sort of like closure. Do a little button placket or something.
Think about children's clothing. Their heads are so big. There's always some kind of opening in the back.
Yeah.
To get it over their head.
And then the other thing is the arms. If there's not enough ease in the arms, you're gonna get your arms up like this, and then they're not gonna be able to move anymore. So being mindful of something like this, I would probably, if I had a piece of fabric that I really wanted, woven fabric I really wanted to show off, I would make the front out of the woven fabric, and then I would make the rest of the garment out of a knit so that it would still
That would be so
stretch.
nice.
I've
Yeah.
seen it done
Yeah, no,
several
that'd be
times.
fabulous. Yeah.
So, yes, that's those guys. And, to sort of wrap everything up, there really, at the end of the day, is no right and wrong answer. If you wanted to take that very architectural dress and make it out of a super drapey rayon because that's what you love and that's what's going to make you happy and you're happy with the result, go for it. There are technique tricks that you can do to make that work better, like making sure you stay stitch your pieces so that they don't warp you could interface them, et cetera, et cetera. But we're not the garment police. We're not the fabric police. No one is going to come along and tell you shouldn't have done that. That was, and if they do, they're not your people. Don't listen to them.
Yes, Marie.
Hello, I have a piece of African fabric with very big prints.
Yes.
And very colorful.
Yes.
I have lots of fabric. I'm not too sure what to do with it for me.
Is it a waxed cotton?
Yeah,
So it's gonna have a lot of shape to it.
yeah, but it's the pattern that's a bit frightening.
So looking at the scale of a pattern, and how that plays, and how the actual pieces that you would use to make a garment, it would be great in a cello dress, because the pattern is, the piece is big and it won't break up that pattern, as opposed to that, whatever it's, I can't see what the
It's
title
the
is,
acton dress,
which
right.
has all those little pieces.
Mhm.
It's gonna break up what you, break up your print, and you don't necessarily
Or
want
something like the Cambria duster,
yes,
you know,
yep,
which is a big, long overcoat
Yep.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
With those big lapels.
Caftan type of.
yeah, a caftan would be great. Looking at something that's gonna help to showcase that print. You don't want to cut it up,
Not too
basically.
much.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say something about, loosely, or the most general categorization of fabric is going to be lightweight, medium weight, bottom
Oh,
weight,
we didn't touch on that. Yes,
right?
yes.
And those are really just recommendations. Like, I wouldn't recommend using a lightweight fabric for trousers, but you could certainly use a lightweight fabric for a dress, or I wouldn't use it for a skirt either. But then what is called a bottom weight, depending on what kind of effect you're looking for, you can certainly use a bottom weight for a dress or even a top.
Yeah.
And it really, you just experiment, play around with it. Think,
Yeah, never. I know there's some people
don't be
who
limited by the definitions too much. Use them as guidelines, not rules.
people worry about, I don't want to cut into my fabric and it's a waste of fabric, and it's never that. It's a learning experience, and taking from the act of sewing in itself is part of the pleasure of sewing, and so you're not losing that. You're gaining that time, you're gaining that creativity, and even if at the end of it you're like, well, I don't really like this garment, there are ways to upcycle it into a bag or a pillow, or cut it up and turn it into. I've recently gone through my closet and taken some of the things I made a really long time ago, and I'm like, these are not me anymore. I don't like these patterns. I don't like this style. I'm going to turn it into a shirt for my child, because and that's if you have a small person in your life you can do that for. But
And the other thing, Marie, is if you're concerned maybe that this African fabric is too much, right? You don't want a whole garment made out of it. Then why not use it for, just the collar and cuffs, or the yoke on something, and match it up with something contrasting, or like if you had a shirt or a jacket, you could do the underside of the collar
With
and the inside
that.
of the lapel with this really dramatic fabric.
Yeah.
And maybe the yoke or something like that.
And the patterns are big like this. Big circles.
well, and if you're
But
feeling
it's
uncomfortable, I was gonna say, if you're feeling uncomfortable to wear something like that, looking at making curtains or throw pillows or tablecloths, something like that. Another use, if you love the fabric still but don't want it on your body, that's an option for that. Does anybody else have any other questions? Yes.
It's not really a question, but it's just a statement for myself, and maybe because I'm with other people. I do find sometimes when I go ahead and make something, and then I look at it and go, I don't know if I'll ever wear that. And I loved what I started to do and loved the whole process. And I struggle with that, so I have pieces just hanging in the closet. Now later on, a little while later, I pulled up, oh, actually they're not that bad. I don't know if other people struggle with that,
100%.
and I can't seem to get over that.
I find sometimes, especially in like the fitting process, I'm throwing stuff on, I'm not wearing the right bra underneath things. I haven't added a piece of jewelry. I got on my like big fluffy bunny slippers, and I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, I hate this on me. Why did I do that? And it's not necessarily the garment, it's all of the other things around it. And you said, you'll look at it, come back to it afterwards.
I don't know if it's like cooking, you've handled it so much, or you're in it so much, and your friends love the meal you made, but you're like, it's okay.
Yeah, and sometimes,
I don't know if it's that.
sometimes that's going to be the process. You find stuff that you've fallen in love with, and then you fall out of love with it, and that's that's
Yeah, they don't have
fair.
that problem making stuff for like pillows or drapes or something like that. So it's interesting.
But I find sometimes you sew for the life you imagine,
Oh.
not
and
the
not
life
what you have. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
then you make something, it's gorgeous, and then you think,
Where am I ever gonna wear
I have
this?
no party to go to.
Yeah.
So sometimes
That's
that's how
True.
it's a beautiful outfit or garment, but it doesn't fit to where you are right now.
In your
So
everyday
maybe
life.
My mom used to buy, she worked at a kitchen, so she would wear like a chef's outfit at
Yes.
work. She would walk to work, so she would wear sweatpants and whatnot on her way to work. And she would always go and buy like these dress, like a skirt and a jacket. And I'm like, she had a closet full of those. And I'm like, why are you buying? I like them. Why are you wearing them? I don't know.
Well, and as our
She had this, she was buying these things, but she didn't have anywhere to wear them. But
I think we're also our worst critics.
Yeah,
Right?
no,
Like
no, I
if, you're
think you're
if
right.
you're making pillows, it's not on your body. Like we're
That's-
always
yeah.
so critical of ourselves and our own work. Like you notice, I didn't quite match up the seams, or I didn't quite match up the pattern, but you're noticing it, so you're critical
And
of
no
yourself.
one else
And
is.
nobody else.
And yet
cares.
when you pick up stuff that you're going to purchase that's made,
right,
and you take it home, you go, oh my gosh, they didn't do this.
They didn't match the
it
seams.
doesn't match the seams.
I
But
know.
when
Is
you-
it that hard to line up the stripes? Really?
Chloe
see
Chloe is my
Thank you,
Chloe
yeah.
is my child, and they've recently bought a striped shirt, and I said, I can make this for you, and it's like, no, I just want to buy it, and I'm standing in the kitchen and I'm looking at their arm, and the stripes are all mismatched. I'm like, I can't wear
Nobody's
this
gonna
shirt,
notice
it's bothering me so much.
I didn't notice it until you pointed it
No,
out. But you also
She
have to
ruined
think,
it for
if
you.
you saw it on somebody else,
the other-
you would
Yeah.
think it was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And you would never notice all
I
of
just-
the problems with it. So I think we have to be
Better,
we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace.
Right.
You know
And-
what I mean?
yeah.
I have
And
one.
be proud of ourselves, even if it is a little wonky. I made this.
So
Thank you.
Deer and Doe's dressed book, we have it in print in French. The English copy is only available in a PDF. Has a fantastic, aside from they've got 9 like basic building block patterns. The beginning of the book talks about, it's a different approach to capsule wardrobes. I really dislike capsule wardrobes because I am the kind of person that wants like
All
14
the
different,
things.
I want like
All
14
the
different dresses to choose from, even if they're all the same pattern that I'm making. But it talks about having a capsule for a purpose, and being able to know, and that was the point you made about what the purpose, like dressing for the life that you actual have. So taking that into consideration, it's, well, what do I need to make that's going to be functional in my life, and do I already have 6 black shirts? Well, I should probably make some pants to go with those.
Or a gray shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Reaching outside.
Yeah.
Sorry, and you were gonna say the art and the science.
Yeah, and when you're garment making, well, with any sewing, with quilting as well, but with garment sewing, it really is, there's the science of the fitting, understanding the size that you need to make, and understanding ease, and knowing the alterations you need to make that pattern fit your body, and then the actual science of the technique of constructing the garment. But then there's the whole other aspect of the art of it, the art of the art of matching a fabric to a pattern is really uniquely you, you know, like or the art of taking a couple of different fabrics and making the same pattern with them, and they're all different. That's that artistic that really only comes with practice. It comes with intuition. It comes with the science of understanding what you're working with. But then you turn it into an art when you marry those two together into something that is really uniquely yours. And that thing about wardrobe, I have an entire wardrobe of office clothes that I haven't worn for like 2 years, you know?
I think we're all probably, you know, somewhat at that point.
Yeah.
Where we've got clothes in our closet that we're looking at and going, I'm never ever going to wear this again. I don't have an occasion to wear it
Breaks
for.
my heart, you know, the gray plaid pencil skirt that, you know, I'll probably never wear again.
I had a beautiful Italian linen pencil skirt suit that I wore, you know, now this is, you're gonna be 16 years ago when I was teaching piano, and I don't have that life anymore, and I finally gave it away the other day because it was like, I love this, but I really just don't have an occasion to wear it anymore. So there was another hand over here earlier, yes.
It seems every time I look at a pattern these days that always the recommended fabric is always stretch woven. I just
Yes.
want to make sure if I translate in my head, is it basically cotton and spandex?
Yeah, so so there are other stretch woven. This is a cotton with spandex.
This is a stretch sateen.
This is a stretch sateen.
I love
and
stretch
sateen
sateen so much because
Sateen
the cotton
refers
sateen, because
to,
the colors are so vibrant and beautiful. But you can make like a pencil skirt or a really fitted dress with this and look like $1 million, but still be able to, you know, like when we finally have our high school reunion, I am going to make a bodycon dress out of a stretch cotton sateen, so that I will look like $1 million, but I'll still be able to dance.
And that's what I was saying with, you know, I've made Pietra shorts out of the stretch corduroy, and it's like, okay, they're so comfortable because they've got that, you know, that movement to them, and I can sit down and the waistband is not restricting me from, you know, sitting like this because.
But the stretch is usually less than 5%.
Oh, it's usually around, yeah, like 2%.
2%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
whereas
sorry,
a-
2% content. It's about a 10% stretch.
Right, whereas a knit is gonna be more like
5.
No,
No,
so a
even
knit is going to be
More
most 20 to like 60% stretch.
yeah.
Yeah. So, and we've started to include that in our, and I guess we should touch on that. So our listings do have, they usually have like a description of the fabric. So they'll tell you this is a lightweight fabric, this is a medium weight fabric. We try to put in the ounces or the grams per square meter, so how heavy the fabric is. That information isn't always shared with us from our suppliers. So if we have it, great. If not, anything like 120, 150 is usually lightweight. 160, 180 is like medium weight, and like 200 and up is heavier weight. And if it does have stretch, we do, pardon?
Sorry, was that on
Grams per square meter, yeah. I can't do the conversion in my head at all.
No,
yeah.
but it's very easy to Google. There's like tables for it, yeah.
And then this is a linen, and to go back to this is a linen rayon spandex, which has so the linen gives it structure, the spandex gives it stretch, and the rayon gives it drape.
And reduces the wrinkliness.
Yes.
A bit,
Yeah. And one of my absolute most favorite garments I have is the Kelio wrap dress, which is a pattern that is made for knits and stretch wovens. And with the stretch woven, if I have made it in a knit where it falls very nicely on my body, and with that stretch woven, I have a stretch linen one, and it gives it that nice architectural folds. So it's same dress, but very different presentations, if you will. Yes. And that reminded me of something else, and now it's gone in my head. Stretch wovens, information. I don't remember. Does anybody else have any other?
I have a question
Yes.
regarding cutting on bias. I've never done any pattern where it requires that, but can you
So
touch that a little?
so the warp and the weft is how so the warp is the horizontal, or the vertical. The weft is the sorry, I'm getting this wrong. The warp is the horizontal, the weft is the vertical weave.
Yeah, one of them goes up and down and the other one goes
Goes sideways, and that's how, and then
Okay.
it's that sort of like basket weave of the fibers. And where you get, so spandex gives stretch because of the kind of fiber. On the bias, you have some mechanical stretch. So it's that's how it's woven into the construction of the fabric. So like you can see this has a little bit of stretch there. So when you're cutting something on the bias, the reason that you would do that is because you want that little bit of stretch, and it will hang differently because of how you're orienting those warp and weft fibers.
That's the nice thing about a circle skirt, for example. Because it's a circle, an awful lot of it is on the bias. So even if you're using a fairly, a woven fabric, it's going to have more drape because it's on the bias. And if we demonstrate here, like this is the threads going one way and there's no give to it. This is the threads going the other way and there's no give to it. But if I go on the bias, which is like the diagonal, you see there's
A little bit of stretch.
And another reason that you want to use bias is I wanted the hem of this to be fairly lightweight, so I didn't want to turn under and turn under. So what I did was I cut a bias strip, and you can tell because the lines are all diagonally, and what a bias will do is go around a curve
Because
really
it
nicely,
stretches.
because it stretches.
Yeah.
So
And what spandex does in terms of stretch is because eventually with a mechanical stretch, if you stretch it too much, it's going to snap those threads. Spandex has stretch and recovery, so the ability to snap back into shape.
Yeah.
Because it is a man-made elastic. So yeah.
So
I hope we've given you